I'd like to turn it over to Rachel Bonner for just a few minutes, who is a 16-year-old high school student, 16, right? High school student, who is an amazing young lady who actually founded a charity called Hope for Crohn's, and she's going to tell you about her story for a few minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Bonner. I'm 16 years old, and I have Crohn's disease. I was diagnosed 8 years ago when I was 8 years old. Now, before I begin with my story, I'm going to take a different approach. Usually, I'll just stand up, tell my story, and hope everyone just comprehends what I mean. But today, when I leave this room, when I stop speaking, I want everyone to be able to not just understand my story, or pediatric Crohn's patient story, but you'll have the ability to understand what every Crohn's patient's daily struggles are. So with that being said, I'm going to start with a book, which recently was turned into a movie, called The Fault in Our Stars. Well, for those of you who have not seen this movie or read the book, it's an insightful book on the lives of two cancer patients and their friends as they experienced life with their disease. Now, ever since the book became huge, I've talked to so many Crohn's patients that have had the ability to connect with that book. Whether it's the message, the themes, the ideas, but even though this is a book on cancer patients, everyone has had the ability to connect in some which way or form with the characters' experiences. Whether it was the gratefulness of having a good nurse and then helping us through our hospital and doctor visits, the effect our diseases have on our friendships, family members, relationships, school, the way others treat us when they find out that we are Crohn's patients, either it's negatively or positively, and lastly, just the way our lives are transformed in a whole by having Crohn's disease. You see, when I was around 12 years old, I went to a camp that was for children with Crohn's or colitis. While I was there, everyone kept talking about how they're afraid to tell their stories. Afraid because they didn't want to be criticized as looking for sympathy. Since Crohn's patient stories are really heartfelt and unimaginable, the patient must have been looking for sympathy, correct? So when I tell you my story, I want you to feel something. I want you to feel understanding, not sympathy, not admiration, but understanding. Even if you have no idea what it feels like to take 1 million blood tests in one day, I just want you to understand that Crohn's is not easy. It isn't a stomach ache that people feel every day, even though that is a symptom. It isn't just passing bowels all the time, even though that can be a symptom. It's probably one of the biggest struggles that anyone that has Crohn's will say. So I'm going to start with the number 11. It took 11 months for me to be transformed from symptomatic to diagnosed. Many people I've talked to said it takes a few months or a few days, and some people are misdiagnosed, so it takes them even a few years. But it took me 11 months because when my symptoms first started out, I started out with hip pain. And so I went to a bone doctor. They did x-rays, MRI scans. I even had a procedure to see if there was fluid in my bones, but it all turned out negative. And Crohn's disease is associated with having hip pains, so it wasn't thought of at the moment that it would be Crohn's disease. So let's fast forward about 9 to 10 months, and my appetite started extremely decreasing. I lost weight really quickly. I was about 20 pounds or 30 pounds. I was about 4 feet and 6 inches. So then it was suggested that I go and see a gastroenterologist. And I took a stool test, and it turns out that the blood in my stool wasn't visible. It was more so microscopic, and you couldn't really see it that well. And so I took more blood tests, MRI scans, x-rays, and it turned out that I had some type of IBD. So then my gastroenterology team scheduled me to have a colonoscopy and endoscopy, and it turned out I had Crohn's disease. So usually when I get to this point in the story, I like to say it was like a light at the end of the tunnel, relief, some type of happiness at the end. And it was relief, but it was false relief in a sense. It was relief to finally be diagnosed, but nothing truly changes. I still missed around 90 out of 180 school days. I was still late to class every day, and I was always tired. I was still made fun of, whether it was the fact that I had a no PE privilege, or I got to walk around with one crutch or a cane or wheelchair, because I had to use diapers and wear go to the bathroom every single hour. Or the fact that I had a renowned pudgy prednisone cheeks, which everyone still assumes I was just a fat kid, but I wasn't. It didn't make a difference whether people knew I had Crohn's disease or not, because apparently that was an excuse behind the real problem. So what you see before you right now, me, I've had 241 medical treatments before I found the one that put me into clinical remission. I tried almost everything. I tried chemotherapies, steroids, NSAIDs, syrups, injections, diets. But I finally came up to my treatment sweet spot, so I like to call it. The place where everything seems to be working out. Every day I wake up and go to sleep hoping that this treatment sweet spot will work until they find a cure. And hopefully the treatment will work indefinitely until that day comes. But it doesn't mean everything is easier. Sure, I don't have to trial through a bunch of different medications, and I don't have to go to the doctors as often, but I still have my bad days where I still have to take my cane to school or take the elevator. I'm plenty late to school, and I miss school days. I still get criticized and asked questions, but I guess that's all that comes with the Crohn's territory. So as I conclude, I am hoping that you're all understanding, not sympathizing, most definitely not admiring, but understanding the daily struggles of a Crohn's patient. But one thing that all Crohn's patients realize after a few years is that Crohn's transforms from a struggle to a badge of honor. I know the day I was diagnosed, I would never stand up here and actually talk about half the things I just said. And I would never have had admitted to wearing a diaper while being in middle school. But Crohn's turns from the secret or struggle to something I want to share with other people. And ultimately to have others understand that the life of a Crohn's patient just a bit more. Thank you.
Dr. Klein, before you go on, Rachel, that was incredible, not just in what you said, but in your poise, your delivery, your eloquence, your willingness to share the story with us. And I speak for everybody here that we are heavily pulling for you, and actually having heard that, hoping that you develop an interest in science, and one day you'll be standing before us in Dr. Klein's capacity making a presentation on a breakthrough that you'll be working on in the field. So thank you very much.
Rachel also didn't mention that she's an honors student and taking 4 AP classes now, I think, so
Now
she's
that's
doing great.
very easy to believe.